Welcome back to another edition of Iron Therapy. I'm Dave Palumbo, and I am joined by our staff therapist, Leslie Timble. And we are back again for another interesting episode. Les, Seth Feroce made a really crazy video about a week ago where he said steroids will kill you. Bodybuilders will die from what they're doing to their bodies. And I think a lot of people were really shook up by it because Seth is pretty, honest about what he thinks, and he's very forthright. And I saw a lot of people over the last couple of weeks, saying how, I'm going to be retiring in a couple of years, even though I'm only, 28 years old. I only see myself doing this 2 or 3 more years, and then I'm going to get out. People are like, why are they doing this? And so I wanted to basically, throw it over to you as the therapist. Are people scared, or do they feel that there's like peer pressure that they're being judged for bodybuilding? Almost like they're being irresponsible, and they don't want people to think that they're doing things that they shouldn't be doing. And it's almost like people have this like fear of like doing what they love, so to speak, because maybe it's not a good thing.
And it's not just bodybuilders, Dave. It could be any kind of athlete. But is there a segment of the population where we do care what other people think? Yes. But there's a difference between caring what people think and keeping a certain filter around that, and caring what people think, and that influences the decisions you make. Mm-hmm. So if you decide to do a sport, let's do bodybuilding, and you're getting all this pressure, whether it's from seeing this stuff, like whether it's from Seth or other people. And by the way, I like you, Seth. If you're watching this is really cool. But it's about saying, keep things into context. Do steroids have an impact on your health? Yes. Bodybuilding isn't the first, and it won't be the last sport. And people take PEDs whether they're doing a sport or not. Should it necessarily stop you from doing what you love? No, as long as your health markers are in place and you're monitoring your levels, getting checked. But when you're talking about young people in their 20s or 30s, and they start taking, let's say, bodybuilding, they compete, and they're hearing all this stuff, including, people about, Cedric was the last tragedy that we've lost, and I wish I could say that would be the last, but it won't be the last. As far as the bodybuilders we're going to lose, and that would scare them to saying, okay, you know what? Getting that pressure of saying, okay, well, I don't want to die. I don't want to be exposed to that. And then having other people watch that and say, hey, why are you doing this? Because look at all the bodybuilders that are starting to fall off. Do you want to be that statistic? And it's one thing to say, hey, yes, that will bring health, being, a bit more health conscious and more diligent about your blood work in mind. But it's another to saying, okay, I'm going to stop competing. So people will decide to, and again, this is not everybody. I'm talking about a certain segment, especially the younger population, to saying, okay, let me stop what I'm doing because I don't like this pressure. I'm going to retire. So what they do is they say, for the sake of saving face, to saying, okay, I'm going to retire to make people happy and get them off my back.
Right.
But then they take that time off, and then they think about it, and they're like, you know what, I want to go back in. And they might wait a period of back in, and they make this what we call comeback. Now, some people genuinely retire and they do come back and they didn't plan to, but that's not the population we're talking about, right, Dave?
Right. No, we're talking about I feel like people are making, and I think Keon Pearson said something like that. And a few other guys said I only see myself competing another 2-3 years. And who am I to say that they're not telling the truth? But my experience being in this industry for a very long time is that bodybuilders don't really retire. Like they kind of take breaks, type of thing. Maybe and it's usually not a physical thing. It's usually an emotional thing. They need to just maybe take a break, like you said, and then come back to it. But I think that there's a lot of pressure on people, social media wise, when people say, these guys are all dying, they're going to kill themselves. Look at how big this guy is. And sometimes the biggest guy isn't even taking the most drugs. It's just, he happens to be a genetic freak, that actually, just grows real easily. Levrone was huge back in the day, but he didn't even take a lot of drugs. But the thing is that people feel like, you know what, I'm being judged. Let me tell these people something to get them off my back. Oh, so and so is such a good guy. He's smart. He's retiring. When he's only 31 years old. Well, the odds of that really happening are 0 to 1. I say, look, do what you want. Just don't do things stupidly and neglect your health. If we're talking about, football, think about all the concussions guys have when they retire and the orthopedic issues they have. How about gymnastics, landing on your neck and you can break your neck, and you can have, permanent injuries later in life. Every sport, has some sort of a ramification, because when you compete at a level, look at hockey. I mean, those guys kill each other out there. You compete at a level that's elite. Okay, you have the best of the best, the strongest of the strongest, and of course, there's going to be risk involved. And bodybuilding, the reason why people target bodybuilding so readily when people die is because it's such a visual sport. You see the results of taking drugs because you're bigger than everyone else and you're harder and freakier than everyone else. You could have a guy who's a football player or a baseball player taking tons of steroids, and you wouldn't even know it because they don't really look that much different, because they're doing it for their performance in the sport, not necessarily look a certain way. And so I think we become stigmatized more because of that. There's athletes, if you look at these articles that they're putting out, there's athletes all over the world dropping. Now, whether it be due to COVID or vaccine, who the heck knows what the problem is right now. But it's not just bodybuilding. So I feel bad for the bodybuilders today, because it's like they have to feel guilty about doing the thing that they love. I mean, these guys don't want to stop, and they shouldn't be peer pressured into stopping. They should just be awoken to the fact that you have to follow, certain diagnostic testing, certain blood work to make sure that you're healthy. And that's in any sport. I say that to people who are just fat people who come to me and want to, lose weight because they eat too much Taco Bell every day. So it's the same advice. Why should people be made to feel guilty? I don't believe people want to stop. Why would they? If you love the sport you're doing and you're the best in the world, who the heck is going to want to stop in your prime of your life? It's one thing when you hit, 38, 40, and you're maybe coming to the end of your career. It's a different story. But I'm talking about guys that are in their prime.
Yeah, I mean, keep in mind, there's going to be other issues too. We're not just talking about social media pressure. I mean, we could do a show on social media itself, but, as far as, was it that runner? She was talking about the stress. I'm trying to remember her name now. It's on the tip of my tongue. And she was saying she needed to take a break. And people were like on her, and it's like all this judgment was coming on. And you guys don't, like, a lot of, I don't mean you guys, I mean the audience, but there's a lot of people out there that don't understand the impact that mental health has on performance. Mm-hmm. So she needs to take a break. Bravo for her to take that stand and saying, you know what, while I want the support of of the audience, or, spectators or teammates or whatever, if I don't have it, I still need to look after me, because no one is going to be there after the show is over but me, as far as dealing with those ramifications. So it's about making informed choices, Dave. And what I liked, I did watch the Seth's video. And what I really liked is to saying, people do like, and you've said this before, that you like the freaks too. Do I like seeing those extreme stunts that people do with, let's say, bikes or skis and stuff like that? Sure.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
But think about all those people that were trying to do that and they hurt themselves or they got killed.
Leslie, do you ever see the extreme games where they actually come down like this mountain on a like a snowmobile, and they flip the snowmobile like twice? I mean, the snowmobile's got to be like 600, 800 pounds, and it's like flipping craziness in the air. And I'm just thinking, how do you time it so that you don't fall down with the thing hitting you right on top of the head and crush you? I'm sure people that happens to all the time. I mean, those sports are the most dangerous, but yet bodybuilding, because you can visually see what, the manifestation of what we're doing. What I wanted to ask you is, what would you tell these bodybuilders out there that are feeling this type of pressure, that are feeling this type of like, I don't know how to handle what's going on. Yeah, there's a lot of people dying. I feel like I'm healthy. I go for tests, but people are judging me because I'm a big freaky guy. or a big freak girl for that matter. And how do I handle this? Because I'm getting stressed out about it.
The reason why people get stressed out about it, Dave, and I go through moments of that myself, and it's usually when I'm close to prep because I have low carbs. Because when you have low carbs, your brain doesn't think the same way. Our brain also doesn't think the same way when we put too much of our identity, as far as too much where we get our self-esteem, in what other people think. So yes, be smart about it as far as what your choices are. When you talk to people who can't get out of their own heads, it's learning how to redefine their identity. They put all their identity as, I'm the bodybuilder, or whatever athlete, whatever sport you're in. In this case, we'll say bodybuilder. I'm a bodybuilder. Or are you anything else? If not, let's look at that, because we need to create an identity beyond that. You're not just an athlete. And I don't mean just like a sibling or a father or, a sibling I'm talking more than that. You are more than a bodybuilder. And if it's not, we got to put something into place, because at one point, whether you're 22, whether you're 92, at some point you're going to retire. What are you going to do after retirement? And we can do a totally different show on bodybuilders that can't retire well, as well as bodybuilders who are forced to retire, how you help deal with that. Where's the support for that around people who want to retire, who are forced to retire? I don't see any support for that. So I could do a rant on this, Dave. I could do a total rant about the lack of support for bodybuilders, which is exactly why I want to do this stuff.
Yeah. I'll give you an example that's not even relevant to bodybuilding. If I do, let's say I'm doing a couple videos and I'm giving out some good information, people are really loving what I'm putting out. And, for whatever reason, it's good information. They like the topic I'm talking about. And then someone goes on another channel and can do a video about how terrible Dave Palumbo is, whatever. Now, if I allowed things like that to bother me, I could go back and it can almost ruin my whole energy flow of what I'm doing, because I'm allowing their opinion to influence what I'm doing, which is stupid if you think about it. If you look at it, why would I let this person influence what I'm doing? I know I'm doing good work, but it's the same thing. So whereas I would just dismiss it and I don't even address it anymore if I see someone do that, and I just continue to do what I do. But that's almost what a bodybuilder has to do. You almost have to block out what the outside world is doing, because worldviews and people's opinions online based on Cedric dying today has no bearing on what's going to happen 3 months from now. Everyone's forgot about that already, and they're already going on to the next thing. But meanwhile, it's eating you away inside because you're allowing it to. And I think that bodybuilders have to just get a really thick skin and say, hey, look, here's my game plan. I know what I'm doing. The only time I would, as a bodybuilder, be upset with maybe something that someone's saying is if I knew that I was doing something very dangerous that I shouldn't be doing, like taking DNP or, maybe taking too many drugs because I got a little carried away. I mean, that's a call to almost like a wake-up call. But I'm assuming you have a good plan, you have a coach, you guys have a good game plan, you get your health markers checked, you're not, there's nothing, you're not in kidney failure, your blood pressure's not through the roof. I would just completely block out what everyone else is saying. You have to. You cannot allow the good opinion of others to negatively influence your thought processes, or it will completely derail what you're trying to accomplish.
Well, in theory, that sounds good. It's kind of like that. We'll just try harder.
No, but you know what? It's not, because think about, Chris and I talked about this on Heavy Muscle Rate. I don't mean to interrupt you. On Heavy Muscle Rate about Cedric McMillan. He was a great bodybuilder. He could have won the Olympia probably a couple of times, but he even admitted to himself he would get into his head, and it would completely derail his progress. And it wasn't anyone's fault but his own, because he allowed himself to listen to this thing and change the trajectory of what he was able to accomplish. So the mind is very important in every aspect of life. We know that, but even in bodybuilding, it's very important.
I really wish I had met and worked with Cedric. He, especially after seeing the After Hours podcast, you and Chris, and hats off to Chris. He did an amazing job on that episode.
Yeah, last night.
Amazing. I got a feeling for Cedric just by watching that one episode, even though I've heard other people talk about Cedric and their experiences, which I've never heard one negative thing about Cedric. And the thing, he's such a giving person. And the problem is, and that's great that he has that empathy. And I think you made the comment that he should have been a therapist. In my head, when I heard you say that, I'm like, thank goodness he wasn't, because he didn't know how to detach himself.
He would have had a nervous breakdown probably.
But you have to learn how to help yourself. Otherwise, it will suck you alive if you help people and you don't know how to take care of yourself.
Right. No,
if he could learn that, he would have been the best therapist.
You gotta be able to put up a wall at some point, so that you don't get sucked dry also of your emotional.
So whether it's Cedric or another athlete, it's like getting back to the topic as far as, the retiring a bit too early because of social pressure. I'm not talking about injury or other things. I'm talking about simply because of social pressure and what to do. I will tell an athlete, I want you to stay off social media. So if it's I have a contract that I have to do certain posts, okay, do the video. And if you have to have someone upload the video for you so you don't get caught looking at the other stuff on Instagram or Facebook or whatever social platform you're doing it, do it.
Leslie, I don't watch any. I put up stuff all the time. I never read any comments. You know what? I go and watch my snake. I have a snake Instagram account. I look at all the snake people and see what they post because I'm just interested in learning. I don't read anything that anyone writes at all.
But the thing is that you're not like most bodybuilders
No, but you got to do that because you'll go crazy out of your mind otherwise, because then you want to fight the whole world, and it just.
But there's bodybuilders that are doing that, and I'm just saying.
But you can't do that. You can't do that. You got to block them out. Yeah.
Well, technically they can, but they're paying the price, which is it sucks out their energy physically, mentally, and emotionally. It's doing such a number on their self-esteem, and coaching people to get away from that, apart from going off of social media for periods of time, like I said, is developing a different identity and increasing their self-esteem in other ways. It's also learning and creating an inner voice that's going to be your best friend. I'm sure we've all heard it, that we can be our own worst enemies. Mm-hmm. We look in the mirror. I mean, the muscle dysmorphia, this, episode was a prime example. We'll look in the mirror, we'll pick out all our flaws. Yeah. Well, what's the last time you looked at in the mirror and said, hey, I really like this about myself? That might happen every once in a while, or maybe even when you're in off season. But when you're in prep, your mind goes a little haywire. So it's important to reel that back in. So when you get these people who make these decisions, either they're in prep or they've been close to a prep. Either they finished a prep and they're reflecting afterwards, or they're going into a prep seeing all this stuff. So it's about timing. But Dave, to answer your question, I'm going a long about way of answering it. What do you do for these people? They can't do it themselves. If they could, they would have been able to do it anyway. And I know my answer for a lot of these questions is talk to a therapist. But honestly, you got to be accountable to someone who knows what they're doing. And there are a lot of good coaches that will do some of the mental piece. But I think I mentioned this to you before. If you want a specialist, do someone who does this all the time. Mm-hmm. This does not derail what the coaches are doing, but it adds on.
The pressure at the top level, Leslie, is way, way greater than the guy who's the upcoming guy and trying to make it, at the top NPC level, or maybe he's a pro that just turned pro. The top level, the pressure is tremendous because everyone is judging you so much more so than everyone else that it can be overwhelming. And that, you're right. Probably every top guy should have a sports, therapist or someone they can talk to, and I'm not talking about your spouse, because you can't do that.
No, I understand.
I'm talking about a separate person who has no emotional attachment essentially to you, that can listen, like yourself, who can listen and give you, answers that maybe someone else can't do for you. And you're going to respect it because you aren't emotionally involved with them. And so I think I almost think it's like if Cedric had someone like that, Kai Green had someone like that, I think they would have been much better bodybuilders, because a lot of their mind derailed them throughout their career.
And, I'm glad you brought that point up, Dave, because as you know, even being the best of the best will hire coaches. Yeah. Even if they themselves are coaches, they will hire a coach. It's not that they don't know what they're doing. It's just that having the accountability, the extra pair of eyes, all that stuff. You hire a coach to help you. And it could be training. It could be your diet. It could be with posing. Even though you've done this hundreds of times before, you still have that coach. Again, where's the mental health coaching for athletes? Every pro literally should have someone like myself to help them through periods of time.
Right.
And like I said, it starts in your off season.
Right. And they don't have to see you 3 times a week. It's
no.
Like, I'm having a tough time. You have an appointment available. I want to talk to you. It's that easy. You could do it once every 6 months if you wanted to, but I'm sure some people out there that they could probably do it every day, afford to do it every day with you, because they have such mental problems. But look, you schedule a massage once a week as a pro bodybuilder, right?
Yeah.
Because you want to make sure you recover. Well, what's helping your brain recover? You need, sometimes you need some therapy. Sometimes you need to be able to release all that, uncertainty that you have. Because I think a lot of people have uncertainty, especially in today's world. They don't know that people are running around scared. Is COVID going to kill me? Is the vaccine going to kill me? Am I going to die just because I'm 280 pounds? Because so-and-so died? You don't know. It's a stressful time. And so you need people who can kind of, balance you out a little bit.
You know how we talk about mind-muscle connection in the gym?
Yeah.
That can be used on a lot of, stresses that we have in our life, whether they're personal stresses, like, whether you've had a tragedy in the family, or like even if it's not the family with Cedric, whether it's a relationship issue, as well as, sports related stuff, such as coping with injuries. You're getting ready for a show and you're injured. That has a huge number on you.
Oh, that was the worst. I hated that and I didn't have any major injuries, but even the little stupid ones that would make me miss a workout 1 or 2 weeks, I wanted to kill myself. It was so disruptive to my life and so emotionally damaging that, it was tough. Thank God I had other interests, because that's really what I did. I kind of just deflected myself, but it still was not fun. All I did was obsess about it all day long. Oh, what am I gonna do?
And then with COVID, everyone training, myself included, I had a number of shows I was training up for, especially in Canada. Our shows were canceled left, right, and center. I was supposed to do this show back in I think March or April, and it kept getting postponed. And then I finally did it, and I think in August, So, and then I had shows that were canceled the day before the show. I had 2 shows that I was trained right up for, day before the show, check-in at the hotel. They said, "Oh, were you registered for the show that got canceled today?" I'm like, "What show?" You can't be my show. I'm here. I'm ready. I'm going to win this.
Yeah, that's the worst.
And that does a number on you.
Yeah, absolutely. 100%. Well, I think this was some good information we put out. Hopefully the people watching this, it will resonate with them. If they want to contact you, let's give you your phone number one more time.
So it's 416-805-6155, or you can send me a message on Instagram. And by the way, we're going to be doing some lives on Instagram. So whether you and I, Dave, and I'm going to be doing by the time this airs, I'll have done an Instagram live with Alyssa, which we did the anxiety episode with.
Yep.
So my Instagram handle is LeslieT_mental_iron.
Okay. Then make sure you check her out. There's other therapists out there. If you have someone that's in your area that you want to go see in person, that's great as well. But don't let these stresses of the day eat you alive or detract you from your goals and ambitions. Bodybuilding is not this evil thing out there. It's just another thing that we do. And so you have to learn how to cope with all the stresses that go along with it, the health possible ramifications. And if you're informed, knowledgeable, and organized, I think it could be done, in a way where you're not going to just, drop dead in the gym one day deadlifting. And that's, I think, what we all fear, Leslie, death. I mean, let's face it, that's the only thing that really we're all afraid of. And we're all afraid we're going to do something that's going to cause us to die, because if that fear wasn't there, no one would be afraid of anything, right? People would just do whatever they wanted. But in the back of their head, they're always saying, is this going to kill me? These guys died. And so you got to take that out of your head. You have to, seize your own life. You can't live in fear. If you live in fear, you will get nothing accomplished, I promise.
And if you live in fear and are struggling, contact someone like myself. Right. You don't have to be alone. And this is the thing, especially with social media. Social media there's a lot of negatives, but some of the positives about social media are like these bodybuilding channels that talk about what supports can be put in place for our brothers and sisters of iron. And I'm just one of them. I'm not the only one. I'm one of them. That's so right. Reach out. It's literally a text message, guys, just to get started. I know it's a scary first step, but try it out. Let's talk.
I agree 100%. I think everyone should do at least one session just to see what it's like, experience it. You might find that it's actually something that gives you peace, internal peace, that is. All right, we're going to wrap this up. I'm Dave Palumbo with our staff therapist, Leslie Timble, for another installment of Iron Therapy. See you next
Thanks, guys. And like, share, subscribe.